It was fascinating to watch some millionaires from around the world flaunt their luxurious lifestyles on social media, including supercars, expensive properties, privileges, and a lot of money. However, not everything we see on social media is real. Most likely, things that seem too good to be true turn out to be fake and fraud. It appears to be the same with some con artists you don't want to be a victim of. We've all heard of legendary con artists who stole millions from their victims. But in today's video, we'll be looking at a false billionaire who scammed women out of millions. I believe you're referring to Simon Leviev, or should I say Shimon Hyatt, when it comes to his remarkable ability to deceive people into believing he was someone he wasn't. Simon Leviev's portrayal of himself as a wealthy guy was a complete fabrication. He was in fact a fugitive who had been on the run from Israeli authorities for years, facing charges of theft, forgery, and fraud. Before he was ever known as the Prince of Diamonds, he received a 2-year sentence and was eventually deported to Israel in 2017. He did, however, flee the nation once more. Hyatt was on the run again, and he felt it was time to change his alias to hide his criminal identity from the public. He changed his name to Simon Leviev and set off across Europe in quest of people to con with his made-up past and supposedly limitless funds. It's fascinating that he started his con on Tinder to snag some victims. His phony life of luxury piqued the curiosity of some women who gave him a swipe right on Tinder. If his Tinder profile aroused their attention, he treated them to overpriced dates, lavish gifts with outrageous price tags, adventurous evenings out, dinners on private jets, and joyrides in luxury cars. Speaking of Prince of Diamonds, Leviev claimed his backstory by telling his victims he was the son of a well-known Israeli billionaire, Lev Arinovich Leviev. This real Leviev was nicknamed the King of Diamonds because of his portfolio of investments in the diamond mining industry. And therefore, this con artist took this as an opportunity to call himself the Prince of Diamonds, lying to his dates about how he made big bucks as a diamond dealer. One of the innocent people caught up in Leviev's sinister scam was a young Norwegian woman named Cecilie Fjellhei. Cecilie and Leviev linked up on Tinder one night, and before long, she found herself swept up in his intoxicating lifestyle. During their first face-to-face meeting, Leviev invited his date to accompany him to Bulgaria. He told her he had a business meeting for his company, LLD Diamonds. Cecilie was overwhelmed, but she decided to tag along on the sudden trip despite having just met the guy. Cecilie admits to herself that Leviev had irresistible charisma, making it hard for her to say no to his outlandish requests. His posse, which included his so-called bodyguard, business partner, and personal secretary, was with him the entire time. Cecilie was actually quite comfortable on his private plane when they all boarded en route to Bulgaria. Cecilie returned to London after her tour to Bulgaria. Despite the fact that they continued to flirt on a daily basis, she wondered if she'd ever see Leviev again. That's why Leviev boarded his private aircraft and flew back to London to meet her after a week. Cecilie was convinced she'd found the one. The fact that her new partner always seemed to have time for her reassured her. It almost seemed too good to be true that she was falling in love. And she really believed Leviev felt the same way. However, Leviev informed her about a month into their relationship that some of his diamond industry competitors had begun making murder threats against him. He said that the threats were so severe that he didn't feel safe seeing her in London. Despite this, Lviv paid her a surprise visit in Oslo when she was on business. However, things began to go strange after that. He began by requesting Cecilia's credit card details, explaining that his security experts had advised him to remove any digital trace that his adversaries might use to track him down. Cecilia readily accepted this reason and joyfully handed Lviv her business card. After that, things looked to be returning to normal. They even made plans to move in together once the security situation was resolved. After 3 months of dating, things finally came to a head for the couple. Lviv began sending Cecilia photographs of himself and his bodyguard covered in blood after alleged confrontations with his opponents. He requested additional money to help him get out of the situation. She complied without hesitation, even taking out a large loan to assist her partner in getting out of trouble. In the end, she lent Lviv over $200,000 in the hopes that he would repay her quickly. That, however, never happened. Lviv sent Cecilia a bank statement claiming to have paid off the loan, but it was a forgery. She sensed something was very wrong and ultimately cut off all communication with the man she believed to be her loving boyfriend. She reported him to authorities in both Norway and England, and that's when she learned Lviv had already been convicted on 3 counts to fraud for situations that were similar to the ones she currently found herself in. It turns out Lviv had been operating a kind of romance Ponzi scheme. He used money stolen from one victim to fund his lavish lifestyle, which he used to entice the next victim. The money he stole from the second individual would be used to pursue a third, and so on. In fact, according to Cecilia's bank statements, Lviv used the money he stole from her to pay for airline tickets for another acquaintance, a Swedish woman named Pernilla Soholm. In the same way, Lviv met Pernilla for the first time on Tinder in March of 2018, right in the middle of his relationship with Cecilia. While their connection began as romantic, Pernilla claims hers with Lviv evolved into a close friendship as the months passed. Before he ever approached her for money, the two had known each other for 8 months. Lviv appears to have a pattern of enticing his victims with his lavish lifestyle, carefully earning their trust over months and then using the trust by stealing their money. Pernilla first realized that she'd been conned when she was contacted by the Norwegian newspaper Verdens Gang, better known as VG. Now it was Pernilla's turn to help catch Lviv before he zeroed in on another victim. VG coordinated with Pernilla to bring an end to Lviv's con. She decided to confront him once and for all, allowing VG exclusive access to the whole thing. Pernilla traveled to Oslo and gave her former best friend a call. Lviv insisted that Pernilla's claims about him were nothing but lies. Throughout the heated phone conversation, Lviv screamed aggressively at Pernilla, who was attempting to get him to accept his wrongdoings. He declines, instead challenging her to produce any evidence of the crimes she accuses him of. Lviv had used money belonging to Cecilia and others to pay for presents he had given to Pernilla during the relationship. But Pernilla had preserved the receipts and could prove it. The swindler's international notoriety skyrocketed as a result of the newspaper's massive spotlight on him. Following a collaborative investigation with Interpol and Greek law enforcement, Israeli police ultimately apprehended the swindler in 2019. Lviv was arrested and deported to Israel, after allegedly using a forged passport in Greece. It's been reported that Lviv's Tinder scams from 2017 to 2019 resulted in the theft of $10 million from his various victims. Even though he was caught dead to rights, Lviv continued to deny he was ever involved in the scams he was being accused of. Instead, he claimed that the victims of his crimes were the true monsters, and that their allegations against him spawned from pure selfishness. In December of 2019, he was sentenced to 15 months behind bars, but only served 5 months before being granted early release. The decision shocked his victims, who felt like the justice system had stabbed them in the back. An outraged Pernilla vented her frustrations in an interview with the Israeli news outlet Channel 12. In fact, another woman known solely as Victim A felt betrayed by the court's decision to grant an early release for Lviv. She expressed her belief that he would undoubtedly get back to his swindling ways in no time. And she was right, because Lviv's commitment to lying about anything and everything has no boundaries. Even after spending time in prison for his constant scheming, he got right back to lying. This time, to get an early COVID-19 vaccine. In December of 2020, he made his way over to a vaccination center in the city of Bnei Brak. He pretended to be a medical worker and snuck in to get vaccinated before he was meant to because he didn't qualify for vaccination. Simon Lviv has continued lying as if it were his full-time profession. His actions indicate that he hasn't learned anything from his previous convictions. It appears that trusting someone like Simon Lviv is difficult. And to think about it, there are people like him using various social media platforms, particularly dating apps, waiting for an opportunity to attract their victims. So what do you think? Would you rather meet someone in person or through a dating app? Let us know in the comment below. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more Lux Life, hit that subscribe button. Cheers!